Thank you for staying with us. Tonight, it's a time for our explainer. And today, I'm not alone. I have an expert with me. Dr. Julius Juan is the CEO of the Kenya Institute for Curriculum Development. And that is because today, we are speaking about the competency-based curriculum. You saw the training of teachers that took place last week, was it?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
So we will get a little bit into that. But the CBC, for short, promises to be more learner-focused. It promises to focus on competencies as well. And some of the differences between it and 844 is that 844 emphasized on competition for exam grades. This one focuses on excellence and competitiveness, more competitive, more content memorization, or what we call rote learning. But this one is more of knowledge and application of skills. And also, finally, that the teacher was the main source of knowledge, but here the teacher is a facilitator. So we'll talk a little bit about this. But for purposes of our explainer today, I want to take you through the various stages. So first, we've got pre-primary that takes place for 2 years. And this is from the ages of 4 to 6, right?
Yeah.
And then we move to the lower primary, which is another 3 years. This is up until the age of 8. And then we have the upper primary, and we will have Dr. Juan explain that for us. Then from here, we move to what is known as middle school or lower education, which, by the way, is sort of together with the upper primary for yet another 3 years. And then from here, you're able to branch out into areas of specialization: arts and sports science, social sciences, and the pure sciences, as they used to be called at some point, now STEM. And from there, you go to tertiary education, and we're informed that you are now ready for the world. So here we are, Daktari. The first thing I want to ask is this. When we were moving to 844, we were told this was going to be a more knowledge-based application. In fact, we had more practical subjects. We did woodwork, we did joinery. I mean, in home science, we were making night dresses and cooking. And we're supposed to be more adaptable to the job market. But so it seems like that's the same thing we're saying now with this new curriculum. So how is this significantly different, and what problems does it hope to cure in the 844?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think, to answer your question, I think one of the things that we didn't do well is that we brought in those competencies and skills, but we never protected the process. So as the process went along, we dropped them and went back to what we are used to. Now, in the current system, we have developed the basic education curriculum framework. It's like a foundation. It's like a house that will ensure that whatever we do going forward is protected within that house. So when you talk of competencies, when you talk of values, when you talk of the principles, that then protects what we are doing. That's why we have the vision, we have the mission, we have the competencies, so that whatever you do, you don't shift away from those key cornerstones.
Well, then some would ask, why not give that protection with 844 if it was a matter of implementation? Because we're spending a whole lot of money creating a new curriculum. That means new books, new materials, training.
Incidentally, the 844, the 8 years, were made so with the view that somebody who was not able to progress to the next level of education would have enough skills that could take them to the job market. As it is now, we have 100% transition. At that age, the children are so young, they can't go to the job market. And 3, we remove the practical skills that could take them to the job market. So, in primary school, the child only needs 3 basic skills: literacy, numeracy, and life skills. And this can be embedded within different learning areas or within different subjects. And therefore, at that level, a child does not need to stay for 8 years.
Yes. And that's where we come in, because it was then announced in February that there would be an exit national exam. At what point? At upper primary, right? No, or is it lower primary?
No, we at that level.
Yes.
When we come from the 2 years of pre-primary to the 3 years of lower primary, we call it early years education. The developmental stages of the learners at that time, their brain and their conception are very close and very fragile. So the transition needs to be very smooth, and the learning stages need to be carefully crafted. Then when you come to the upper primary and lower secondary, they enter into that teenage age.
Okay.
Again, we call that middle school.
Yes.
So at that level, again, they need to be taught in an expanded curriculum where they try to explore in their environment. Now, going back to what you asked, what we have is not called national exams. We call it assessment. This is something that is Kenya National Examinations Council will send to schools to assess the literacy and numeric skills, and then the schools,
life skills and
the schools do that. You check character development, you check attitude, you check basic literacy and basic numeracy. So that will be done at the school. It's an assessment. Nobody is ranking anybody. It's just to check as a country.
But at that point, they're able to exit the system. Are they?
You don't exit. You just move the way you move now from standard 1 to standard 2 to standard 3. There's no exit. It's progression. Okay,
so correct me if I'm wrong, because the system before 844 allowed people to do an exam at class 4, then exit and perhaps do an apprenticeship and, you know, go into vocational skills, and then you're able to do another exam at class 8, another one at form 2, another one at form 4, and then A level. So are we saying there's no exit?
No, we don't have room for any exit. The assessment that is going to be given is called assessment for learning.
But it's a national assessment. Because some say it's the pressure of a national exam again that brings us back to
some countries, by the way, just do piloting. They pick specific samples, they do assessment, they check similar characteristics, then they pick the samples, they do the assessment just to check. For example, you want to look at reading. You assume that by the, let's say, age 8, a child should be able to read this number of words within a specific time, depending on their context. So when you give that assessment, you are checking in our country what is our average.
So across the country.
Exactly. So it has nothing to do with exams that you will fail, you will pass. No. It is assessment for learning. Is helping us to identify the areas that we need to do differently to make them do better.
Okay, so this curriculum is also supposed to be about, we say it's, you know, more learner-centric as opposed to with the teachers, and you are training the teachers. So this is a double question as we finish. What exactly are you training the teachers to be able to do differently? Also, you're saying there'll be a lot more focus on the parents. So what is the role that they play in all of this, considering they're a big stakeholder? They'll be doing homework, they'll be guiding their children through.
Now, when a teacher goes for training in a college or a university, they are taught or trained in different ways of teaching. We have the lecture method, maybe discussions, question answer, and activities. Now, this is a continuum. If you're using a lecture method, it means you know it, and they sit as passive receivers and they get the facts. Now, when you move towards a more learner-centered approach, you provoke them. You give them activities. Then from those activities, you see how they are doing their things, and as a teacher, you just guide them. In that process, you give them an opportunity to be creative, to be imaginative, and express themselves. That is what, when we talk of a learner-centered approach, that's what we mean. Now, in terms of parents, we have developed a guideline. We call it parental empowerment and engagement. That is, teachers can invite parents and let them know how they can help their learners from the home, even if...
But doesn't that already happen, Daktari? No. I mean, you know, our parents, I went to school with my parents, they would have the teacher-parent meeting. I was not doing well in this, and she needs more tuition and more coaching and more encouragement.
I'm happy you've said that, because when you went to school, you'll be told your child is not doing very well in maths, this one needs to be this, then you move to the next teacher. History, this is how your child is doing. We are not doing it that way. When a parent comes, we want to know, when this child is at home, how does he or she relate with the others? What does she do when she's or he is at home? How do you see him, for example, if you see some aggressive behavior, so that the parent gets to appreciate that what the child is doing in school should be the same with what is being reflected at home.
Do you think parents understand, so we're moving from PP1,
so you can see, we are moving away from a parent correcting homework to just engaging the learner on how they behave at home. Yes.
Do parents understand this, or do you think they also require training? So PP1, PP2,
actually
lower primary, this is, you know, it's middle school, it's, you know.
Actually, this is what I would call the nitty-gritty details. The basic thing is for the parents to understand that their learners or their children will be moving from grade 1 up to grade 12. That progressive stage-by-stage movement. That is the fundamental issue, that basic education is compulsory from grade 1 up to grade 12. And that pre-primary that was originally detached completely from the basic education is a very critical component of how learners are supposed to progress from early years as they move on. Very critical.
Okay. The cost, people are decrying the cost. Did we need a whole new curriculum for this and talking about, I mean, your new textbooks?
Yes.
Training.
Yeah.
I mean, this is setting it up from scratch. And the guarantee that we won't be reviewing this another 40, 50 years from now. We haven't had a generation that has finished.
Let me answer the last question.
Yeah.
Curriculum as it's conceived these days is a living thing. Curriculum is supposed to be reviewed. UNESCO requires after 5 years, but currently, because of the fast-changing society, we are supposed to be conducting research and modifying every component to fit it as the world changes. So review will always take place. It is part of the process. Now, in terms of the cost, incidentally, if you look at the final cost of what CBC will mean, with the learners who come out with competencies, people who have talent in music, who have talent in arts, who have talent in other areas, have talent in sports, you know, branching and being useful to the society and contributing to the growth of the economy, it is a lot better and much cheaper than having a large number who have been declared as failures and they become so miserable. Not because they don't have the talent, but because we never gave them the opportunity. And finally, depending on how we treat this one, which I know the government will be announcing soon, you will see that the cost is going to reduce fundamentally.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will have you in when that announcement is made. Thank you once again so much for making sense of this and how we transition from one to the next, and of course focusing on that critical one that a lot of people were confused about, an exam, and if this is a national one. Thank you, Dr. Julius Juan, who is the CEO of the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, talking about this and how you are getting your children ready for the work life. That's our explainer. Tonight, we want to take a break here on the show.